The Spin-Off Podcast Network.
K-pop to me means more than just listening to music. It's learning to be myself.
The Spin-Off's new documentary, K-Pollies, follows 3 Pacific youth obsessed with K-pop. In a one-off documentary, see what they've found in Korean pop culture and how they bridge it with their own.
When you start dressing, looking different, everyone side-eyes you. But in K-pop, they're just like, no, like celebrate yourself.
Watch K-Pollies today at thespinoff.co.nz/videos. Made with the support of New Zealand On Air. You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by Spark Lab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about Spark Lab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
Kia ora koutou katoa, and welcome to Business is Boring. I'm your host, Simon Pound, back to share more of the great stories of people, ideas, and change happening in business in Aotearoa. The metaverse is a big business topic right now, and you might be interested to know there are a bunch of Kiwi leading this new space. Sam Ramlu is the co-founder and managing director at Method, a pioneering studio that's been making immersive online experiences for nearly 2 decades, and who recently, with her new studio M Theory, joint ventured with Oddboy and released a VR game called Wanderer. It was picked up by Sony PlayStation and has been met with rave reviews. To share her journey, the story of making virtual worlds, and to talk about where things are going, Sam Ramlu joins us now. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, how's it going?
Oh, so good to see you here. Thank you. Hey, so first up, you were really early into this immersive online experiences space. Tell me about what led you to start Method nearly 2 decades ago to help brands and people do more cool things online.
Yeah, I just always feel super old when anyone mentions that.
You were very young.
2 decades. Okay, thanks. Yeah, look, I think the thing is, thinking about it now, I could talk about all the planning we did and how we knew this was going to be a big thing. And to be honest, we were in our early to mid-20s. And so for us, it was just something we just really enjoyed doing. And we saw a future in immersive technologies. I guess back then it was literally just websites. We saw amazing interactive websites being done online in the UK and the US, and we wanted to create the same experiences here. So my partner and I, are kind of more gamers, into tech a little bit more. And so we could see people were kind of starting to talk to us about doing more of this work. He was a designer and I was in advertising. And so he was starting to get freelance projects, and from my studio as well that I was working at. And then we were just like, this is really cool. We could do more of this. And we could, and we just got more and more clients and kind of went, well, we need to set up a company and then I'll move over and start doing that full time. And it grew really, really organically. There wasn't kind of a business plan written down. And we were just doing great work and we were just really enjoying doing great work. So the more we did, the more we got to do, I suppose. And then the more we got to explore. So, we were playing, as new technologies came out, we were just naturally playing with them in our lives and seeing how we could bring them into work. So, gamification wasn't even a word when we were doing games online and getting people to do games. And some of these games were uber successful. We started playing with technology like Xbox Connect, doing some of that stuff. And then it led into apps, augmented reality and virtual reality just naturally.
Was there a moment when you knew it was working?
Yeah, I think that the moment we knew it was working was we got quite a decent profit from the year, and from our financial year, and we're like, oh, we made some money this year because we weren't actually paying ourselves that much. We were lucky. We were in our 20s. There weren't a lot of dependencies, and so for us, we were okay to just work on a low salary. And then we got a little, chunk of money, and it wasn't a lot, but, we were kind of like, okay, let's go spend this. And so I think that was just that was good. We were able to have like a trip to see our friends in Kenya, and it kind of felt like, if we can do this, if this is what comes out of it, this is great. But I think the thing for us, and I know a lot of people say this, but money wasn't the main object. We were stoked to be doing some of this stuff and being leading edge with it, getting to play with technology. And the thing is, we were kind of doing it together, to sort of figuring it out together. I think part of it was there was no sort of path back then in the space. We kind of created that path. We forged it ourselves, and it probably, for us and the way we work, was probably the best way to do it.
And how have you built the team over the years? You've been really purposeful around inclusion and diversity and been a real champion for that in the industry.
Yeah, and I think, I guess the thing is, it probably hasn't felt purposeful because, and maybe being a brown woman means that naturally there are some things that I can, maybe I don't fall into some of those things that people fall into, of, hiring certain ways. And I guess for me, and the biggest problem I have is that I read everything. Like, I consume everything. So if something comes in front of me, I'll read it all. So if like going through job, and that's related to getting CVs sent for a role, I'll go through every single CV and every single letter. For me, it boils down to the experience they've got. And so that's how I've always hired, is based on portfolio or experience. It doesn't matter what the person's name is, where they're from, So that's kind of formed that. And over the years, we've got this really diverse team, of people that are talented, who are kind and caring and collaborative. It's sort of collaboration is one of our values. So we make sure that people come in and they can actually genuinely work together.
As a visible leader in the industry who is doing the diversity thing at work, successfully, what kind of advice do you give to these, when you are asked about how to do it? And also, how do you feel about being the person that people have to come and ask about it?
I think the thing is, it's weird that, for me, it's weird that you say leader and leading the space. And I guess the thing is, for me, I never set out to do that. I just always wanted to do great work, and I was pretty headstrong and, kind of almost in a way having blinkers on, probably missed some of the stuff that might have happened to me that might have seemed a bit, non-inclusive. But for me, it was always about, but that's what I want to do, so I'm going to do it. I'm stubborn about it. And if there were obstacles, they just felt like natural obstacles. They didn't necessarily feel like they're related to gender or race. And maybe they were, So now, and I guess the thing is, I'm kind of like, I don't want to say reluctant leader, but I guess the thing is, for me, I feel like what difference would it have made to me growing up if I'd seen someone like me? And maybe I didn't personally need to see a role model, because I was like, I just want to do this. I was quite headstrong about it. But what about others out there? What about, people who who don't see themselves in these roles and then naturally go, well, I can't, that's not for me. I grew up very academic. That was my background. Growing up in a Fijian Indian family was, super academic, and it was like a doctor, actually lawyer, because I argued with my dad a lot, good arguments. But if we'd said creative, arts just wasn't a thing, So growing up, that was sort of ingrained into me, but I was a creative person. I wrote stories and wanted to do that sort of. I've read a lot, So for me going into this, I guess I go, what difference would it make for someone else, for someone young, to see someone in this space? And I feel really, I feel like I'm kind of, it can feel egotistical, and I think I have to come out of that and go, well, if you're not doing it, who else is doing it?
And the advice that you give, hire people based on their portfolio and talent, and have environments where everyone's welcome and treated well. Have you seen examples of people picking that up, or has there been, are you seeing forward movement?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the thing is with environments like this, they just don't get talked about, because people are more likely to call out bad behavior than they are good behavior. So I think if it seems surprising that we've got all these great leaders out there they're just doing their job and what comes naturally to them. I never felt like we needed to talk about what we're doing at Method until, like when we came up with the value collaboration, that was something that the team came up with the values. And I actually said, that's a really weak value for me personally, because if you're not collaborative, who are you as a studio? And everyone said, yeah, but you're truly collaborative. People say they are and then they don't. And so for me, that was actually quite eye-opening, that people would come in and say that we're actually living those values. And so I think there are a lot of great leaders out there. And I think a lot of them are probably more introverted leaders. We don't shout about it. You just get on with the job, The ones who shout the loudest are probably the ones getting hurt the most, right? And so I think the thing is it means that we probably do have to step out of our comfort zone. I think people would think it was weird that I was saying I'm an introvert, but I'm one of those, introvert, extroverted people. If you get me talking about something I'm passionate about, I won't stop talking. But I think the other thing is there's a lot of really great humble leaders out there and we should start celebrating them, but also understanding that they find it really, really hard to talk about successes because that's just not natural to them.
Let's talk about the big move of Wanderer, the VR game that you worked on with Oddboy. What led you to start a company making a whole VR game?
Well, so it started with, naturally again playing in this technology space and in AR and VR. And we got one of the first dev kits, the Oculus dev kit, the absolute first one that came out. We kickstarted, put it into Kickstarter. And so we started playing with this technology at work naturally. We were putting it on, we were feeling sick because that's what VR was in the beginning, a lot of roller coaster rides. Who thought that was a good idea? And we were like, this could be really, really cool for some of our clients. So we actually started to pitch ideas to some of the existing clients and agencies that we had. And no one was picking it up. They're like, what is this VR thing? How are we going to, it's not going to take off. And so for us, very much it was about how can we educate the market. So we were also going through a bit of a dip in the business at the time. So we were looking at, well, maybe we can kind of look at this and lead the space. So we started doing talks, and this was as Method, and started doing talks, and then realised, after a couple of years, we did our first project in 2014, and then actually a couple of years later. Was when VR started getting talked more and more about, and we'd already worked on one project and were starting to do more projects. And we realised that actually Method as a brand, even though we were doing all this great stuff, people coming out in this space as a new industry, so people were forming new companies around AR and VR, and we wanted to be very much international. And so for us, it was like, well, actually, people aren't recognising that Method's doing this. And so maybe we should set up a new brand to literally tackle the space, and it will help us take that brand overseas, as well as under that brand we can start doing our own IP. So, we'd always wanted to do our own IP in the form of games and other content. And so we thought, well, maybe under this brand we could do that. So we started M Theory. We did, we started doing more and more client projects, and then so one of our team had actually left to start his own game studio. He's, really passionate about making games. And so we'd always kept in touch, and he was still doing design work for us. And we started talking about, imagine if we could do something in VR that like a game. Back then there weren't many games at all. So we were talking something quite new at the time. Then an interactive fund came out in New Zealand by the Film Commission. We'd started having this idea, and we're like, why don't we put it forward for this and see how it goes? And then we got a little bit of funding, and we're like, great, someone thinks our idea is good. And honestly, the rest is serious history, So that's kind of where it started. And the joint venture's been amazing, because I think it's one of those things where it took 3 years, it took a good 3 years to get that funded. And it was a lot of hard work. We sunk some of our own money, and we made that decision. We said, look, what if we put some actual money behind this, hire someone, get someone to start creating a demo? We're committed to it. That money that we got, from the Film Commission just didn't go far, but it gave us that boost to go, someone thinks it's interesting, there'll be other people out there who think it's interesting, we think it's interesting, and we think it's worthwhile. So then we just, over 3 years, just tried to get it funded. And that was hard, And I think if we hadn't been in a joint venture, I think we might have given up sooner, either party, because at any time, if you're kind of exhausted from doing these trips where you're talking to people and they all love the idea, but no one wanted to actually put any money behind it, you'd come back and you'd be deflated. The other guys would be doing their bit, and then you'd get your energy back. And so 3 years we kind of went on, and we were literally kind of at the end of kind of looking for opportunities, and then the PlayStation opportunity hit, and suddenly that was, one of the only, I guess this is the thing is also when you think about opportunities and how they come, you only really need one good opportunity, and you can do the rest from there.
We'll be back shortly to hear how PlayStation came on board, the idea behind the Wanderer game, and how Sam believes we need to work to make a more inclusive and human metaverse. Spark is proud to partner with the Sustainable Business Network and the Climate Action Toolbox. The free Climate Action Toolbox can provide you with simple step-by-step guides to measure and reduce your emissions. Help lead the way to a low-carbon future for New Zealand. Visit sparklab.co.nz/sustainability to find out more.
Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today.
Raising capital or taking your business to the world? Investment Fix has the lowdown on everything you need to make it happen. This season, we're exploring the US market, the opportunities it offers, what it takes to grow a business there, and the best way to approach investors. Join some of the superstars of the investment and business world as they share advice from their time in the US so you can make your mahi count in this massive market. The Investment Fix podcast, brought to you by Invest New Zealand. Tune in today.
Welcome back to Business is Boring. We've all heard a lot about the metaverse lately, the virtual worlds we all might be spending a lot more time in soon. But for Sam Ramlu, it's already beginning, as they've built the super successful Wanderer VR game in the Unreal Engine, one of the leading virtual world builders. How did they pull this off? And how can we make sure the metaverse future is better than our tech present? How did the Sony PlayStation opportunity, so they ended up, coming into the game and helping give you a platform to launch it?
Yeah, I mean, so the Odd Boy team were at Boston PAX, probably living off 2-minute noodles as they trawled around. They'd spent their money on airfares and got a stand at PAX. My partner and I we were at GDC in San Francisco. And so we were kind of like just having this last-ditch attempt to see how we could get it funded. And we were just having some really great conversations. And I think at PAX there was kind of like one of those pitch your idea sort of sessions. And there was a Sony executive in the room and, came out and saw the demo, liked the pitch, and took it back to the team. And kind of from there we kind of got a deal, It happened pretty quickly after that. And then we were forming a team. It was like, okay, well, let's put these guys together. People come out of the Method team or M Theory team into this. Odd Boy came into it, and then we were wondering, we were making a game.
And what was the pitch?
Well, the pitch was, of course, a time travel VR adventure game, and it was a bloody mouthful, But for us, the idea of I guess where it came out of was this. Initially started with a museum. So we were doing a lot of museum work, exhibitions and content and creative content. And I think there must have been something out of that. We were like, imagine if you were walking around a museum and you picked up an item and you could go back in time, with that item and see, be a fly on the wall, right? It was like literally VR can make you be anywhere. And so that was the idea. And then, okay, let's do a time travel game. Let's make it an adventure game. It doesn't have to be set in a museum. So slowly, the story started to form. And what does that look like? And we've ended up where we are now with the story that we have now.
And so you had that idea, and you'd been, you and your partner and the people in the business loved gaming and loved new things. What kept the spark alive for that 3 years until Sony came along? And then how did it feel when, the absolute kind of one of the biggest names in entertainment said, yeah, yes, you're right, after you'd had 3 years of no's?
It feels, the thing is, I couldn't tell you how close some of these conversations had come. I remember personally chasing down a Chinese investor in China on the trains, losing my ticket. Oh, my God. It's, all the stuff. And I just remember being so exhausted at the end of the day going, what am I doing? Why am I here doing this? Some of the trips that we were doing. And I think, at the time, I guess we were working as a studio. So we were making money. It's not like we'd put everything into this and weren't so that we were earning money doing projects. We had a young son by then as well, so in the mix. And I think we were just determined. We were like, one of the things actually also that really helped drive us was that over the 20 years now, we had caught on to some things really, really early, but then when it hadn't been picked up, kind of not left them behind, but moved to the next thing, because naturally and then we'd see it get picked up and people make their whole business around it. We'd be like, oh my God, what the heck? We were doing this 5 years ago. And so one thing we were really resolute about was we don't want to stop on this VR train. We truly, truly believe in it. And so we were genuinely just on that mission. We were like, let's not do what we did for these other things and drop it, because actually we truly believe in it. And so many people, even till 2 years ago, don't think this is all hyped. Literally someone now who's getting into the space had said, it's hype, don't know where it's going, don't think it'll be a success. We were lucky. We were lucky. We were also talking to Oculus, another big party. We were talking to platform providers like HTC. There just wasn't the sort of money floating. And I think something would have probably happened elsewhere within the space of, we were kind of right at that cusp where people are happy to invest, we'll go next steps. And, I think that was just the first guys who came on board, and actually probably the best ones to come on board. Yeah.
That's so interesting about that timing point, that you'd been able to pick that up out of the past of the business. Is the right idea at the wrong time is the wrong idea.
Well, if you're pioneering, it's never the pioneers who are making the most. It's the people afterwards who are like, you know what, you've set. And, we miss so many opportunities. Like the app space, we were doing apps before they became a thing. And then we stopped. We just weren't promoting it as much anymore. And there are businesses out there who've made their whole business out of creating apps, At the end of the day, though, for us, and I guess it does feel like we do a lot of wide stuff, but for us, storytelling was always the most important thing. Like, how can we tell? How can we have this great engagement? How can we tell a great story? How can we make it beautiful and emotionally connecting to people? And the game's just one thing that's managed to do it. It's a big one thing. But, within the game, there's so many moments to kind of do that. And interactive storytelling. I think being gamers as well, we could see the value in having something that wasn't just what we call lean back and watch. You were actively involved. And so all our stuff is about how you can get actively involved in something and create that world around you and, feel those emotions at the end.
That's so cool. And that kind of immersive experience and storytelling and stuff, being a through line from what you were doing in the brand work and the websites and the online experiences. How do you actually, though, go from being a storyteller and having this idea to building a whole world in VR? How do you do it?
I think this. Look, and this is the thing: is there's been so many pieces that fit really well, because even up until just before we launched, we were promoting the game. We had done this amazing trailer. And you start to look at the comments, and people are like, who are these guys? Are they going to live up to it? Is it all just marketing hype? Da-da-da-da-da. And then suddenly you're like, oh, crap. Is it going to be? But the thing is, I guess we'd had grounding in years of doing work to budget and times and experiences for people that and we'd done stuff in VR. But I think the thing is, the audience who was looking at this, gaming audience, had never seen us before. We came out of nowhere. They didn't know our experience in VR. They saw this great marketing content and were like, "That's you're hyping this up." And the best vindication for us was when, one of the guys who had been a really, really great early supporter, and then the more trailers he saw, he was like, "I really hope this is good." He was starting to freak out on our behalf that this was going to be a letdown for everyone. You get that massive hype, like Matrix, the latest Matrix. But, you get that hype, and then you've got a great height to fall from, right? So he came out and said, "Damn it, they did it. They actually did it. They lived up to the hype. We didn't think, I'm sorry, I doubted you." Literally words to me in messages, "I'm sorry, we doubted you, but you guys did it." And so I guess the thing is, all of that is because of all the combined experience that we've had. We can't say that we got lucky. It's years of that's created that luck, I suppose. Knowing how to manage a project. Yeah, we'd never done a 2.5-year project before, but it has very similar principles to a 3-month project. Getting a great team together. We'd already had people who were working on this, so we didn't have to start a team from scratch. We had people we were familiar with who'd done work with us. So we got them all together, and it's like this just became this great culminating moment, and the future looks amazing and bright, and the opportunities we've now got to go places with this is pretty epic, really.
Yeah, well, the response has been amazing, hey? Really great reviews. And how's it gone, and what opportunities has that opened up for you now?
The reviews, I guess, for us, and the thing is, I was never involved in the core development of the game. I was also running Method at the time, so very much about my partner going into this. While we got funded, it wasn't a lot of dollars, so I was kind of like a little bit, as a high level producer and kind of managing the team and everything. But the guys were in the trenches all the time. But I try the game, see things coming together, see it from the stories that were being pieced together, and go, "This is a really good game," or am I just biased? But because I wasn't involved in the development, I was like, I can truly see this as good. So I think all of us went into it going, look, we'd be really happy with a 7. And I was like, I think this is an 8 or a 9, and we were just starting to panic, because the closer you get to actual launch, the more you're just like, how's this going to actually, everyone was doubting us as well. So then the reviews came out, and we were as a team going through, honestly, just the most nervous time ever, not being able to sleep. And also, of course, it was releasing at 6 o'clock in the morning US time because of all the time zones. So we made it, 6 o'clock our time here. And so there's no sleep had, and you put it out and you're like, how's it going to go, and then the reviews have been just amazing. And and the reviews plus also the comparisons to other games that had spent, over 300 million on this. And so for us to get that off the back of what we worked on, we're like, oh, wow, we actually did it, And then the opportunities that are coming out of it now is very much what we'd hoped for. So Wanderer is a 3-part series, and we've made the first one. We left everyone on a bit of a cliffhanger, and we want to make the second one. And so essentially that's what we're trying to do. And I don't want to jinx anything, but hopefully we can do that, and hopefully with a bigger budget. And then what does Wanderer 3 look like? And in fact, our timing is probably really great in that PlayStation is bringing out their next generation VR headset. So we're going, this is the time, if we can time it so Wanderer 2, actually Wanderer 1 comes back out on PlayStation VR, and then we can do the next one, and suddenly all 3 Wanderers are on here. That would be amazing for us, yeah.
There's a real feeling with VR that it's kind of like, one of these technologies that has been coming for a long time, but maybe like the metaverse that's been talked about for a long time, maybe the moment is actually arriving, and there's kind of the feeling when you put on the headset and you are in these spaces. I get the same feeling that I got from the first iPhone, where you were like, well, this is cool. But the coolest thing is that there's heaps of smart people all around the world working on things that are going to be in this platform that will make it super cool. And there's this real feeling of kind of excitement and possibility there. Like, as someone who is building, virtual worlds, real virtual worlds in what, is probably going to be the same software that the metaverse or, parts of the metaverse are experienced in. What are your views on the space? And what do you make of the big chat at the moment about, when the metaverse is coming and how things are going?
Yeah, and I think the thing is, it's like, there's hype around it, right? There's a phrase that's been coined, like gamification back in the day, of the metaverse. And so everyone who knows a little bit about it are going, oh my God, the metaverse is coming. The thing is, we've had versions of this over the years, and the metaverse is really just the same as the social life we have online, but in a virtual world. So it's just the next iteration of that. And if you think about it, a lot of people have been in a version of a metaverse. Halo, which is a multiplayer space, you could call that a mini metaverse, right? In the way that people interact in that space. They go there. A lot of people go there for social interaction, not necessarily just for the game. And then Roblox, Minecraft. And we've been experiencing this for a long time. And actually social games online where you're not in VR, right? So this is a next level where you're now going, okay, those spaces where you hang out. And if you think about it, you go from physical spaces where you hang out physically to spaces where you hang out socially. And now it's going to be virtual, so you're going to be in that space talking to people, and you can do what you do in real life, play games, watch things together, spend time together in a virtual world. My personal feeling about it is I just feel that at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and our core is about physical engagement and interaction of seeing people. And as much as I like hiding behind my laptop and working from home, I think also you can't miss these moments. It's what makes us human, and we saw through COVID and being locked down that the one thing people craved was human engagement and company, and you couldn't stop people from meeting with each other. That was the biggest thing, stick to your bubble. And I guess the thing is, in a metaverse space, I just feel like there needs to be balance. I don't want the next generation growing up not knowing what a physical relationship conversation looks like. I don't want my son to just put a headset on and that's his way of engaging with people. That would be really sad. That just such a sad thing that we're so lucky to be able to do this. And we're going to replace that with technology. But technology has its way of adding value to it. What can you do so when you can't see people, when you can't have this experience? But a lot was talked about in the early days of VR about replacing travel. You wouldn't need to travel anywhere. How awful is that? How awful does that sound, that you couldn't be there with the sights and sounds and tastes of a different culture and a different location, and how much have we all missed that? So in a way, and this sounds really, really bad, and I don't mean it like this, but maybe all of this stuff happening at the same time, COVID and being shut down in the metaverse, might not be a bad thing, because maybe the balance may come out. We might go, actually, we do all crave human connections. If we hadn't had COVID, would we have gone even further into it without realizing what we were losing? So I just don't want to lose our humanity,
Yeah, and I think, there is so much potential for more shared experiences and richer kind of engagement and, connection that can happen if you can truly inhabit an online space together. But the way I think, even the word metaverse, I expect that that's going to be like the information superhighway or something. We're so early and so much of the commentary is so cooked. But the cool thing is that there are these Kiwi companies that are so involved at the very front end of things. And so, really fascinated to hear about your experience and your thoughts on that and how you as a team are going to help to, make sure that these are more human experiences.
Yeah, and I think, how amazing is it, right? When you hear about the likes of Fluff and, our friends beyond are doing some amazing stuff in the space as well. And you go, I think the thing is, Kiwis have always been great at this, but we've just been given more of a chance to shine now. Our biggest problem being smaller audience, and which means not a lot of budget that comes with it. And hey, the world's more open now. We're more exposed to it. People are less worried about, oh, you live there and that's too far away. Now everything's so much closer, right? And so I think I think that's really helped. And I just love that there are Kiwi companies leading the space, that it's not just the usual story of great tourism and sites and agriculture. Hell, we're doing it in the space. And the games industry and sector in New Zealand is just burgeoning, and it's in spite of the small audiences, the lack of funding, and all of that if we were, like we always say, if we had started up in San Francisco, our lives would have been just so much different. But this is people doing stuff that they're really passionate about, and they're going out there and getting it. And while, especially the games industry, I think it might look like an overnight success, there are people who have been working in the space for years. Like, share my story. There are other people who have been doing the same hard yards in the space, and only now it's becoming a lot more apparent. So I think, in terms of virtual worlds and stuff, for me, I think I guess Wander in itself isn't necessarily an open world. It is more of a game. It's an interactive story. But even within that, it's like, how can we share things and make people feel emotionally connected? One of the things that I was very rah-rah about was, making sure that we considered people of colour and women, and it's natural for me because I'm like, hey, that's me. When I look down at hands in VR, I see white male hands most of the time. Like, we need to change that. And so that comes through in the story, and that you embody different people. You look down and you've got painted fingernails. You're playing the drums and you're a female drummer. And then you're a Mayan, a Japanese explorer in the Mayan jungle. So I guess for us, how can we get this into a story? Another thing was, how can we showcase historical moments that just aren't your typical historical moments? We knew we needed to start with very normalized ones, or ones that people were familiar with. But over time, we want people to start going, wow, I'd never heard about that female explorer or whatever, And so for me, that'd be just such a proud moment that someone heard about some story through our game. And I think with the metaverse, we've got this responsibility for providing safe places for people. I think there's a lot that our kids are going to be exposed to, and what can we do as people in the space to do that, to make it a safe place? And I feel like, in the NFT space, a lot of people have jumped on, seen a way to get rich quick, and there's genuinely people that's it. So what can we do to make sure that actually we can widen who's accessing this? I mean, we know what that profile looks like with people who are buying NFTs. Unfortunately, it's like, the whitest, malest kind of sector right now, right? So how can you get other people accessing it? What do you do to get people accessing? People that go, what's an NFT? We're living in the space, right? So we hear it all the time. There'll be people out there who go, I have no idea, and I would never be able to access that. So for me, it's always about how do we get access to it, but still, being true to the environment that it's in. And I do often feel like I'm on my high horse about it, but I guess I always then feel like, well, if I'm not saying it, who else is going to say it?
Absolutely. As an observer of the space, it's, there's so much cool stuff, and there's so many kind of, things that are pointing the way to the future. But a lot of the big projects and most popular and kind of easily available kind of things to think of, they do seem so teenage boy. You can kind of like smell the Lynx Africa, and it's a really important to kind of push that thing. I think there's a couple of final thoughts here. Like, what advice would you have for someone who has an idea that they believe in and has heard 3 years of no's? Like, how do you help people to kind of keep going?
I think the thing is, one thing that we probably didn't have, we relied a lot on our own energy and how determined we were. Look, not everyone's made that way, I guess. So I would say try and get those connections early. The thing is, it's so much easier now to get connections than it ever has been. There's so much open stuff. Use them. We always felt, I think as Kiwis, we always feel like asking for help is a sign of weakness. We were really proud of the fact that we were never government funded, and then it was like, hang on, we're actually missing out on potential money here, but we didn't want handouts. Well, don't look at them as handouts. They can help build your dream and your vision. So think about that. Think about surrounding yourself with smart people who can help guide you. And how passionate are you really? Because if you stick at something for 3 years, there's something in there, right? But look, at the same time, I'd also say, don't feel like you're wedded to something. And I guess the thing is, you could be in the space that isn't working out, but you felt like you've put 3 years into it and you don't want to give it up. And so I guess the thing is, it's also okay to fail. And that's a really hard thing for me to say, but it's actually okay for that thing to fail, for you to try something else, put that determination into something else, put that energy into something else. It's okay, at the end of the day, yeah.
And as a final thought, what will success be for you and for your companies?
Success for me will probably be that I can actually enjoy a night and have some sleep. But look, I think the thing is, I'm probably also one of those people that, I won't use the word workaholic because I think that has negative connotations, but I actually really love what I do. I don't see it as work. I get to make amazing stories. I've been asked, why don't I just go fully into Wonder? I'm like, yeah, but then I'd be missing out on all these amazing stories that we could be telling in museums or with iwi, and I just go, I've got FOMO big time. So for me, it'd be leaving this legacy behind that when people think of the digital space and immersive space and AR, VR space, we're there. I mean, it sounds really egotistical, but how amazing to have that left behind. And actually I think the biggest thing for me, and it was a really cheesy quote that I saw, and I can't quote it exactly, but success to me is about how we can now bring the next generation up along. So if I've been given this opportunity, how can I actually help others? Why else would you do it? Personally, it's not about the money. I want enough to live really, really comfortably, and I'll admit that. But after that, it's how can we make sure that other people can see the space for what it is? And that's everyone. People who kind of go, that's not a career you should be going into. I want people to realize that this is an amazing career. That people who look like me, people from the Pacific Islands can actually do this and make an amazing business out of it.
That's so cool. Thank you, Sam Ramlu, for coming and sharing your story today. That's Sam Ramlu of M Theory and Method. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you to Sam, to you for listening, and for everyone who helps make this happen. Do follow Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to rate and leave a review if you like what we do. E nohora.
From the Spin-Off Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz. Kia ora e te iwi, Te Aihe Butler here, podcast manager at The Spin-Off. If you enjoy listening to our podcasts, consider supporting our mahi by signing up to become a Spin-Off member at thespinoff.co.nz/donate. The Spin-Off Podcast Network.